Huge news for Affirm today. They just expanded their pay later service to Walmart self checkout. So their buy now, pay later service will now be available for Walmart stores, which is awesome. Obviously, Walmart is a huge retailer. They're one of the largest retailers in the world, and they have a lot of average folks that could really benefit from a buy now, pay later system and an offering from Affirm. So awesome to see there. Great bullish news. That's why the stock is up over 10% today. But what I wanted to cover today in today's session is the recent buying from large institutions. We also just had the number one short seller in this stock start to cover their short position. I think that's definitely a positive for the stock. Also, what I'll do in this video is I will go over the Wall Street analyst ratings, we'll go over the financials, and at the end of the video, I will give you a price prediction for Affirm. So with that being said, let's talk about it here. So the number one shareholder is Morgan Stanley, who increased exposure by 27% over the past quarter. Love to see that there. And then we saw Capital World Investors increase exposure by about 12%. We saw T. Rowe Price increase exposure by about 11%. Vanguard increased exposure by 1%, Vanguard being the number one asset manager in the world. We also saw State Street, the number three largest asset manager in the world, increase exposure as well. Obviously, those are passive indexers, but Morgan Stanley and Active Firm, awesome to see there. So active and passive stock asset manager, I should say, are buying more of the stock. And this happens as the number one short seller sold down or covered part of their short position. So they covered 16% of their short position over the past quarter. So that's good to see that the number one short seller is starting to cover their shares. They have an average price of 68. So that means that they roughly initiated their short positions around $68. So that's good to see there. But it's also somewhat concerning that we saw a new short position come in from Twin Tree Management. They started their short position at about $18. Obviously, the stock is much higher there, so they're either sitting on a pretty big loss, or who knows, maybe they have already sold their short position. Maybe they have already covered. We'll find that out next quarter. But interesting to see some moves there from the top short sellers. And then one of the reasons why I think you see a good amount of shorting, a good amount of active managers going along, is because there's a wide range of opinions on Wall Street for this stock. What do I mean by that? Well, if we take a look at the Wall Street analyst ratings, we can see that there are 7 different bearish ratings for Affirm, and we have 6 bullish ratings for Affirm. So that can kind of tell you that this stock is somewhat of a battleground stock, meaning that there's a wide range of opinions on the stock market for this one. And it's also worth noting that we did see Morgan Stanley downgrade the stock from equal weight to underweight with a $20 price target. So this is a fresh downgrade from Morgan Stanley. So obviously we don't love to see that, as Morgan Stanley is the number one shareholder. But at the end of the day, it's not the end-all be-all. It doesn't mean that Morgan Stanley has sold, but I wouldn't be shocked if Morgan Stanley is doing some selling over the quarter in reaction to what their research department is telling them, that this stock, you should be underweight this stock. So that's a fresh research report from yesterday. Obviously, if they sold down some stock in reaction to that report, they probably feel pretty silly today with the stock up over 10% right now. But with that being said, let's take a look at some of the financials for this company. So we can see here that the revenue growth over the past year has been about 20%. And then for the next 12 months, we're projected to have revenue growth of about 22%. So that growth is expected to intensify over the next 12 months, which is awesome to see. And then profitability-wise, we have been moving in the right direction. So we have a gross profit margin of 62%. For those that don't know, that's basically just revenue minus cost of goods sold. It tells you what a company makes for what it sells. So Affirm's 5-year average is about 49%. So we have profitability metrics that are above Affirm's historical profitability metrics. So that's good to see there. And then from a balance sheet standpoint, we have $1 billion in cash, about $5 billion in debt, which means we have $4.5 billion more debt than we do cash. But our net operating cash flow was positive for over the past 12 months. And we had capital expenditures of about $125 million. So we're roughly spending about $100 million to run this company for a year. So with $1 billion in cash, you have over 10 years of cash on hand. That's awesome to see there. That implies that this company has a significant amount of cash on hand and will be very comfortably able to continue to fund its future operations for the foreseeable future. And then with that being said, let's take a look at the chart and give a price prediction for this stock here. So we're coming off the test resistance at around $51, which is where shares had topped out in March of 2022. Therefore, I believe this $51 level will act as resistance once again for Affirm, especially as we are overbought according to RSI, which should lend additional selling pressure. Therefore, I believe we see a move off of this resistance level and we get a move down to support once again at around $42. And then we see that stock turn around and we see a continuation of this move higher that we've seen over the past couple of months. So not calling for the stock to fall off a cliff or anything, just simply saying I think we fall from this resistance level at $51. We come down to support at 41, and then we see a broader move higher over the coming weeks. So that's what I'm seeing for Affirm stock. Also, we're above all daily moving averages, which does imply bullish momentum. So the stock's now an outperformer. We're above all daily moving averages. We're coming up to a major level of resistance, though, which I believe leads to somewhat of a pullback. And then we see a continuation of that move higher once we come down to support at around $41. I call this $41 level support as this is where shares had topped out in August of 2022. Past resistance acts as new support. So I believe this $42 level will act as support once tested for Affirm. So still bullish on Affirm. Just from a technical standpoint, it looks like we could probably get somewhat of a pullback in the short term. But with that being said, it's awesome to see that Affirm is expanding this partnership. It's partnerships with major retailers for buy now, pay later. Walmart being a huge retailer, this is huge news for the company. Definitely bullish. The move higher today is justified. And it's awesome to see that the largest short seller is starting to cover their position. And we've seen our largest shareholder and State Street and Vanguard, large passive indexers, buy more of the stock. So all that is pretty good news. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. Helps with the channel a bunch. And I'll see you here next time.